Le maître à danser. Chapitre 1er de la manière de se poser le corps. Tout dépend pour bien apprendre du bon commencement, ce qui est l'affaire du maître. Mais comme l'écolier a beaucoup de vivacité ou que souvent le trop d'études dont il est chargé lui fait oublier la plupart de ses exercices et ordinairement celui de la danse que l'on ne croit pas aussi nécessaire qu'elle est, puisque c'est par elle que nous nous comportons dans le monde avec cette bonne grâce et cet air qui fait briller notre nation. Et c'est sur cette idée que je me suis fait un plan ou manière de leçon que le maître donne à son écolier pour le mener de pas en pas, même lui enseigner tous les différents mouvements des bras, afin de les conduire à propos à chacun de ces différents pas de danse. Et comme il est essentiel de savoir se poser le corps dans une situation gracieuse, c'est ce qui est expliqué dans ce premier chapitre, de même que le représente cette figure. Il faut avoir la tête droite, sans être gêné, les épaules en arrière, ce qui fait paraître la poitrine large et donne plus de grâce au corps, les bras pendant à côté de soi, les mains ni ouvertes ni fermées, la ceinture ferme, les jambes étendues et les pieds en dehors. J'ai tâché de donner à cette figure l'expression possible afin qu'en la voyant on puisse se poser le corps tel qu'il doit être. Je lui ai donné une attitude prête à marcher. C'est pourquoi elle a le pied gauche devant et le pied droit prêt à partir, soit pour faire un pas en avant ou à côté, parce que le corps étant posé sur le gauche, par ce moyen le droit doit agir facilement. J'espère que prenant toutes ces précautions, on ne tombera pas dans le ridicule d'être gêné ou raide, ce que l'on doit éviter, ni même d'affectation. La bienséance ne demandant que ce beau naturel et cet air aisé que la danse seule est capable de procurer. This treatise of Pierre Rameau, the dancing master, le maître à danser, was published for the first time in 1725 and republished in 1748. It's a reference work which explains already in the first chapter how the dance gives the key to behave in society. This book was translated by John Essex in 1728, 3 years after the first edition of Pierre Rameau. You can see the indication done from the French of Monsieur Rameau. That shows all the importance and influence of France in Europe for the art of dancing. And that's exactly what John Essex points to his preface. Dancing being the peculiar genius of the French nation, they have for many years taken great pains to find out its beauties as well as advantages to mankind in all respects, so as to qualify persons of what condition soever to dance well, and give them a good carriage and genteel behavior in conversation. The book I here recommend I have translated from the French of Monsieur Rameau, which is in great esteem among the masters there. You can notice in the chapter table the big numbers of chapters in the beginning concerning the way to stand before the chapters that really concern the learning of the steps. The first chapter, de la manière de se poser le corps, that we already saw. The second chapter, de la manière de bien marcher. The third chapter, des positions et de leur origine, in which Pierre Rameau explains that the positions were invented in the previous century by Pierre Beauchamp, the dancing master of Louis XIV, to have proportions that create a good balance and therefore more grace. These new positions bring out what is known as l'en dehors, the outward movement, a hard work of external rotation of the entire leg from the hip joint that shows the feet turned outwards. The 5 positions and the en dehors are still used in classical ballet, but with an outward movement which is much more accentuated, the 2 feet making a flat line. In Baroque time, instead, the toes look towards the diagonals and the whole body is built from this space with the idea of a delimited volume in front of you. As Jean-Georges Noverre said in his Letters on Dancing and Ballets in 1760, "Nothing is more necessary than having the thigh turned outwards to dance well, and nothing is more natural for a human being than the opposite position." Let's see in details the several dance positions. First position. The legs are stretched, the heels together, with the same weight on both feet, and of course with feet looking outwards. Second position. The feet are separated by the distance of a foot length. The heels are on the same line. There is no foot in front or behind. The legs are stretched with the same weight on both feet, which brings the pelvis in the middle of the feet, still rotated outwards. The third position, also called emboîture, like boxes that fit together, is perfect when the 2 legs and feet are so closed that you can't see any light in between. The heel of the front foot sets to the arch of the back foot, feet always moving towards the diagonals, and of course, you can have either the right foot or the left foot in front. Fourth position. The feet are separated by the distance of a foot length, like in the second position, without crossing, but still defined by the line of the arch of the foot to the heel, as when walking. The weight is neither forward nor backward, but right in the middle, which means that you have 50% of your weight on each foot and that the pelvis is between the feet. Like in the third position, you can have either the right foot or the left foot in front, still with toes looking to the side. Fifth and last position. The heel of the front foot touches the toes of the back foot. The weight of the body is in the middle, the legs are stretched, and like always turned outwards. You can have the right foot in front or behind. So, the first position, second position, third position, fourth position, fifth position. The treatise continues with the different ways of bowing. Chapter 9. Des révérences en général. Chapter 10. De la manière d'ôter son chapeau et de le remettre. Notice that a gentleman must dance without his hat on his head. Chapter 11. Des révérences de différentes façons. Chapter 12. Des révérences en arrière. Chapter 13. De la manière dont les demoiselles doivent marcher et celle de se bien présenter. Notice how straight she looks and the fan in her hands. Chapter 14. Des révérences de plusieurs manières. Chapter 15. Des révérences en entrant dans un appartement ou dans une assemblée. Chapter 16. Du cérémonial que l'on observe au grand bal du roi. Chapter 17. De la manière de se conduire avec politesse dans les bals réglés. The ball is a subject that I will not develop right now, but let me just explain what we see in this picture. We are in the middle of a dancing representation. The king is sitting on his throne on one end of the room that we call le haut de la salle, the top. The whole assembly is sitting on both sides of the room, with women in front and men behind. The orchestra is in the lower part of the room, facing the king, so the dancers are all surrounded by courtiers. The couple, numbered 1 and 2, has finished to dance, making an end reverence to the king. The couple 3 and 4 is waiting to begin to dance, standing in the lower part of the room near the orchestra. This couple is waiting for the other couple to leave to take his place and make the reverence. It means that each couple is dancing one after the other, ready to be observed by the king and the whole assembly. It means you have to be a really good dancer to be invited to the balls, to be accepted in the court, to get some honors, and to be part of the high society. If we continue to look at the two couples of dancers, we can see that the men are both on the left side and the women on the right side. This is the usual position to begin and finish a dance. And a couple-figured dance always begin and finish at the lower part of the room. This way of organizing the dancing room was very common. We can compare, for example, the drawing of Pierre Rameau with this representation from 1686 of a ball happening in Holland entitled Bal à la manière française. Let's continue with the chapter 18, where Pierre Rameau gives an instruction to get into the dance. De la manière de faire les révérences avant de danser. Observe how they take their hands quite low, the two arms forming a V. Chapter 19, discours sur les mouvements en général. And finally, in chapter 20, a way to learn a first step is given. De la manière de faire les demi-coupés. Here is a demi-coupé en avant, forwards, and a demi-coupé en arrière, backwards. Chapter 21, du pas de menuet est la méthode la plus facile pour le faire de différents côtés. Chapter 22, du menuet et de la manière de le danser régulièrement. Chapter 23, des agréments que l'on peut faire dans le menuet et de l'attention qu'il faut avoir pour le figurer également. Chapter 24, de la manière de faire les bras de menuet. Chapter 25, des contretemps du menuet et la manière de les faire. Chapter 26, discours sur la courante en général. Chapter 27, des temps de courante ou pas grave. Chapter 28, des pas de bourrée et des fleurets. Chapter 29, des coupés de différentes manières. Chapter 30, des coupés de mouvement. Chapter 31, des pas tombés et des pas de gaillarde. Chapter 32, des pirouettes. Chapter 33, des balancés. Chapter 34, des pas de sissonne. 35, du pas de rigodon. 36, des jetés ou demi-cabrioles. Chapter 37, des contretemps de gavotte ou contretemps en avant. Chapter 38, des contretemps de côté de plusieurs sortes. 39, des chassés de différentes façons. 40, des saillies ou pas échappés de deux pieds. Chapter 41, des ouvertures de jambes. Chapter 42, des battements de différentes façons. This is the end of the first part. Some other step exists in Baroque dance, but as Pierre Rameau says several times in his work, he wants to describe the basic steps, the ones that are used in ball dancing, which he names pas des danses de ville, and not the ballet steps, which are more complicated and virtuoso, used for the stage, where the professional dancers also add theatrical expressions. In page 269, Pierre Rameau says, "There are also other steps in dancing, of which I have no mention, having undertaken to treat in this book only of the manner of making all the principal steps in ball dancing, and to lay down the most easy methods of performing them with the arms, that anybody may learn to dance with all the judgment and delicacy that this exercise requires, and I flatter myself with success." Le maître à danser enseigne la manière de faire tous les différents pas de danse dans toute la régularité de l'art. The dancing master teaches the manner of performing all steps in ball dancing, but also la manière de conduire les bras à chaque pas, the use and graceful motion of the arms with the legs in taking the proper movements and forming the contrasts. This is the second part of the book. Chapter 1. Discours sur les bras et sur l'utilité de les savoir conduire avec grâce. Chapter 2. De la position des bras et de l'élévation qu'ils doivent avoir. Chapter 3. Des différents mouvements des bras. Chapter 4. De la manière de prendre les mouvements du poignet. Chapter 5. Du mouvement du coude et de l'épaule. Chapter 6. De l'opposition des bras aux pieds. Let's have a few examples. Half coupé backwards. I oppose the arm to the leg that stays in front. If I begin with a bourrée step on the right foot, I make the opposition with a rond du coude, a circular elbow movement, with the left arm, and I stay until the end of the step. To continue with another bourrée step, I do the rond du coude, the contrast, with the opposite arm of the foot that starts the step. Chapter 7. De la manière de faire les bras avec les temps de courante et les demi-coupés en arrière. Chapter 8. Avec les pas de bourrée ou fleuret. Chapter 9. Avec les coupés de différentes façons. Chapter 10. Avec les coupés de mouvement. Chapter 11. Avec les pas tombés et les pas de gaillarde. Chapter 12. Avec les pirouettes. Chapter 13. Avec les balancés. Chapter 14. Avec les pas de sissonne. 15. Les pas de rigodon et les jetés. Chapter 16. De la manière de faire les bras avec les contretemps de gavotte, where he also explains what to do with the arms in the contretemps ouvert ou de chaconne, and in the contretemps ballonné. And after, actually, there are 2 more chapters that don't appear in the contents table. Chapter 17. Des différentes manières de faire les bras avec toutes sortes de chassés. Chapter 18. De la manière de faire les bras avec les saillies ou pas échappés des 2 pieds à la fois. And this is how finishes this dancing master's lesson. The dancing master has an important place in the life of well-educated people. Each dance lesson gives the possibility to learn technique and choreographies to prepare the balls. But it's also a way to be formed as to position, carriage, today one would say deportment, and behavior in society. It gives handsome and agreeable manners that makes a person shine gracefully and with distinguished elegance. As Pierre Rameau says in the first chapter of his treatise, a just property requiring nothing more than a natural, free, and easy air, which is to be only gained by dancing. This regular, sometimes daily, instruction provides a subject to painters. Let's have a look at the front page of Pierre Rameau's book and Jonesec's translation. You can see a private dance lesson with a couple of dancers taking both hands. The dancing master is watching them playing the music on his violin. Look at the similarity in this painting of Pietro Longhi of 1741 called The Dance Lesson. The scene takes place at home, with even someone looking at the dancing partners, and the dancing master also accompanies with the violin. But we know that a pochette was used, like, for example, in this representation, Le Maître de Danse. This little violin was perfect to be put in a pocket and very practical for the dancing master who was going from place to each family.
we can notice that he's teaching a little girl who already knows how to take her skirt, like in the explanation of Pierre Rameau. Here is another dance lesson on this azulejo, Scena Cortesa, from 1710, where we can see the same kind of things. Also with the woman holding her skirt, and with the man holding his tricorn hat in his hand. Let's come back to our steps. Except for the courante and the menuet, which have their own steps repeated during the whole dance, you can find all the steps in any dance. For example, a bourrée step can be done in a bourrée, but also in a gavotte or a sarabande, or a jig, and even exceptionally in a minuet, but only in England. All the steps are combined together to make a choreography. The thing is to know how to place the steps according to the different types of measures. The general rule is 1 step for 1 bar, except for the quadruple time, where you put 2 steps in 1 bar, and for the minuet and passe-pied, where you need 2 bars for 1 step. The courante is also specific, but let's stick to the general rule. Each step begins with a plié to prepare the élevé when you come up onto your toes. The plié is always on the upbeat because the élevé has to be on the first beat of the bar. After the élevé, you finish your step. Here is, for example, a coupé de mouvement. If you make a pas de bourrée, you will do plié, élevé, the first step on the first beat of the bar, and the 2 steps left. If you make a coupé, and 1, and after you slide. If you make a pas grave, and 1 on place, and after you slide. You can have a hop on the first beat like in a contretemps, and 1, and 2 more steps. It can be on the side, and 1, and for a half coupé, and 1. When you jump on both feet, it's different because you fall back to the ground, so the reception of the jump has to be on the first beat of the bar. Let's have a look at a rigodon step, which combines 2 steps with those 2 versions. The hop of the beginning is on the first beat of the first bar, and the assemblé jump 2 steps together falls on the first beat of the second bar. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2. Pliés are always on the upbeat. See how Pierre Rameau expresses this in his treatise with the beat of the measure. Mais le pied fait tout le contraire de la main, puisque dans le temps que vous relevez sur la pointe du pied droit, c'est dans ce même temps que vous frappez. Ainsi, on doit plier sur la fin de la dernière mesure pour se trouver à portée de relever dans le temps que vous frappez. La cadence s'exprime de 2 manières en dansant. Savoir les pas qui ne sont que pliés et élevés sont relevés en cadence, mais ceux qui sont sautés doivent tomber en cadence. Ainsi, les mouvements doivent toujours la prévenir, c'est-à-dire qu'il faut plier sur la fin de la dernière mesure afin de relever lorsqu'elle se doit marquer. Let's now take a bourrée step and let's have an example in a double time, like a bourrée or a gavotte or a rigodon. If we take a pas de bourrée, which is composed of a plié and 3 élevés, the plié is on the upbeat and the 3 élevés on 1 and 2. And 1 and 2. And if we continue with another bourrée step, and 1 and 2. Now continuously, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and. The plié is in the end of the measure, so actually plié is both the beginning and the end of the steps. If we now have a triple time, we need to put those 4 actions in the whole bar, still with the same rules. plie on the upbeat and beginning of the step on the first beat. You will notice that the plie is faster than the steps, and that we don't have the same regularity like in a double time. That gives the circular typical rhythm of a saraband or a chaconne or a passacaglia. And we need this preparation of the plie to get the impulse of the phrasing. Let's see two bourrée steps which follow one another. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Let's talk about jig, or forlana, or canaries. We need to divide our 4 movements into 6 subdivisions. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 3, 4, 6, 1. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's make slowly 2 bourrée steps forwards and backwards with the arms. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you jump on both feet, you will be on 1, 2, 1, 2, and that makes the whole dynamic of the dance. I suggest we come back to all the steps we've seen and make a choreography based on a bourrée's music to have an overview of all these explanations. The bourrée comes from the pieces for the violin of Jean-Ferry Rebel in the second suite in D. At the time of Louis XIV, the art of dancing was shining in all Europe. The Sun King appreciated the arts in general, but the dance in particular. Having his lesson every day, he was an excellent dancer, and he imposed this discipline on the courtyard. Balls and ballets abounded. Feasts and operas couldn't exist without some choreographies. France was showing its splendor. Here are some drawings of Henri de Gisset, dessinateur ordinaire des Ballets du Roi, who was admitted to the Painting Academy from 1663. They represent the Ballet Royal de la Nuit, danced by His Majesty in 1653. Louis XIV was barely 15 years old. Jean-Baptiste Lully, who was not yet a musician for the king, performed several roles in this ballet as a dancer. In fact, every musician knew how to dance because everybody had to be able to dance. Being part of a certain social rank required grace, and reputation depended on talent. Let's listen to Pierre Rameau in his preface. Nous pouvons dire à la gloire de notre nation qu'elle a le véritable goût de la belle danse. Presque tous les étrangers, loin d'en disconvenir, viennent depuis près d'un siècle admirer nos danses, se former dans nos spectacles et dans nos écoles. Même, il n'y a point de cour dans l'Europe qui n'ait un maître à danser de notre nation. Le règne de Louis le Grand sera toujours regardé avec justice, comme le règne des hommes les plus illustres. Entre tous les arts qui se sont perfectionnés sous les yeux et par les libéralités d'un si puissant monarque, la danse a fait les plus rapides progrès, tout semblait y contribuer. Ce prince, qui avait reçu des mains de la nature une figure noble et majestueuse, avait aimé dès son enfance tous les exercices du corps, et avait ajouté aux dons naturels toutes les grâces qui peuvent s'acquérir. Le goût qu'il avait pour la danse l'engageait dans les moments paisibles de son règne à donner de ces ballets magnifiques où ce souverain ne dédaignait pas de paraître lui-même avec les princes et les seigneurs de son royaume. Quelle émulation ne ressentaient pas tous les jeunes courtisans dans l'espérance d'être admis au plaisir d'une cour si brillante. It's therefore the French taste, le goût à la française, which imposes itself as the only reference. It gives its rules and codifications established by the Royal Dance Academy, Académie royale de danse, institution created by Louis XIV in 1661. If you look at the treatise of the German dancing master Gottfried Taubert, published in 1717 in Leipzig, you will understand this fact in the title Rechtschaffener Tanzmeister oder gründliche Erklärung der französischen Tanzkunst. Let's also notice that it's again a translation of another French treatise, Choreografie ou l'art de décrire la danse de Raoul Auger-Feuillet, which was also translated in England by John Weaver in 1706, Orchesography or the Art of Dancing. I won't expand on the notation subject, but the invention of Mr. Beauchamp and Mr. Feuillet was really something new and ingenious that has brought a lot to dancing. With the possibility of reading it like a music score, it allows a bigger and easier propagation to everyone. Let me now introduce you to Mr. Callum Tomlinson, a dancing master who wrote The Art of Dancing, published in London in 1735. This treatise is independent of the French ones and comes later, even if it's the same kind of contents table. It shows lovely pictures of dancers with steps notated on the floor. This treatise provides us with information about the technique that occurred in England. As a matter of fact, if you dance some choreographies from the English repertoire, like those of Mr. Labbé or Mr. Isaac or Mr. Pemberton, you will be able to observe a specific style. As Mr. Essex was saying in his preface, dancing here in England has been very much advanced within these 20 years, which I must confess has been chiefly owing to the masters now in being, particularly Mr. Weaver, who gave us the institutions for dancing, which I shall here take notice of, and in the next place mention his history of dancing, with the rise of the pantomimes, which are now so much in vogue. His Mars and Venus, a dramatic entertainment, was the first of this kind produced on the British stage or in the kingdom. It was well performed and had great applause. All the characters are justly drawn and finally executed. Stage dance has always been a way of telling a story and getting into a dramatic expression. It's a way to describe emotions through the interpretation of a character. In Baroque time, before pantomimes, the whole body of a dancer or an actor is a mediator to show passions. Using his look and face expressions, with gesture through precise movements of arms, hands, and fingers, a dancer knows how to eloquently convey effects. Listen to these beautiful quotations. L'Abbé de Pure, Idée des spectacles anciens et nouveaux, Paris 1668. La principale et la plus importante règle est de rendre le pas expressif, que la tête, les épaules, les bras, les mains fassent entendre ce que le danseur ne dit point. Claude François Ménestrier, Des ballets anciens et modernes selon les règles du théâtre, 1682. Il faut donc exprimer dans les ballets les mouvements du cœur et les affections de l'âme. Et c'est le chef-d'œuvre de l'art parce qu'il en faut parfaitement connaître la nature pour les bien exprimer. I suggest we take as an example a solo dance from the music of Armida's opera to see what sort of expressions are made possible beyond the steps. Armida is a tragedy lyrique composed by Mr. Lully in 1686, based on an epic poem written in 1581, La Gerusalemme Liberata, by Il Tasso, an important Italian poet of the 16th century. Let's notice that the choice of the subject taken for this music is no more mythological like normally, but heroic. This tragedy, created for the Académie Royale de Musique, took place in Paris at the Théâtre du Palais Royal because the king, who put Jean-Baptiste Lully out of favor the year before, refused to have it in Versailles and didn't even see any performance of it. However, the public loved it and it was a big success, so much that it continued to be represented for several years till Mr. Gluck composed his own Armida in 1777 on the same booklet written by Philippe Quinault at the time. This beautiful music inspired also dancing masters, and the Passacaglia of the first scene of the fifth act was choreographed 3 times. 2 of these choreographies are from Mr. Anthony Labbé, a French dance master established in London. One is for a woman, published in 1711, and another one, published in 1725, is actually the same because it uses the same combination of steps, but for 2 women, which involves a lot of space changes. The dance you will see was notated by Michel Gaudreau in his Nouveau recueil de danse de bal et celle de ballet, apparently published in 1713. It was composed by Guillaume Louis Pécourt, a dancer trained by Pierre Beauchamp, who succeeded his master in 1687, becoming composer of the ballets of the Royal Music Academy. It was common to take a musical piece out of its context to make a dance of it. In Lully's tragedy, the booklet mentions Les plaisirs et une troupe d'amants fortunés et d'amantes heureuses viennent divertir Renaud par des chants et par des danses. The dances during the Passacaglia were probably with a corps de ballet, making typical Baroque symmetrical figures, personifying pleasures and lovers. In the same way, we can compare somehow to Jean-Henri d'Anglebert, who wrote this Passacaglia for the harpsichord, giving it some more ornaments and a specific writing appropriate to the instrument. He also took it out of context and put it into an instrumental suite, completely detached from the original. His publication of the Pièce de clavecin in 1689 contains indeed quite a lot of music transposed from Lully's operas. Pécourt's dance we are interested in is entitled Passacaglia pour une femme dansée par Mademoiselle Subligny en Angleterre de l'Opéra d'Armide. Miss Subligny started in the Royal Music Academy in 1688, 2 years after the creation of Armida. She's one of the first professional women dancers to dance on stage after Miss La Fontaine. She danced a lot of solo dances written by Mr. Pécourt and was the partner, among others, of the famous dancer and choreographer Mr. Ballon. She went to London around the years 1700s. She was the first French lady to dance there. See another example with this Gigue pour une femme dansée par Mademoiselle Subligny en Angleterre. And she finished her career there. Let me remind you that there is a difference between theatre dances and ballroom dances. Pierre Rameau says in his treatise that he will write another volume concerning the way of making all the different steps of the ballet. Unfortunately, it seems that he didn't write it because we don't know anything about it. That includes also a difference in the arms, with the use of shoulder movements, le rond de l'épaule, which was not allowed in ballroom dances, that are higher and bring more amplitude and diversity of movements. This choreography of Armida's Passacaglia is one of the most beautiful dance pages that we have from that period. Armida, a Saracen magician, is in love with Renaud, her Christian war's enemy. She is tortured between admiration and hate, duty and her feelings. Armide to Renaud in Act 5, first scene. L'amour que j'ai pour vous cause l'inquiétude dont mon cœur se sent agité. Her contradictions makes her have some excessive actions that turn into regrets, despair, or revenge. She uses her powers to manipulate Renaud, but will in the end mourn the loss of his love. What I wanted to do in the solo dance of Pécourt was making this character appear, taking different moments of the story of Lully's opera to evocate Armida's seduction, charms, and enchantments, fear, pain, anger, rage, and threat. I used various arms and wrists movements, face expressions, and also added gesture. I referred to iconographies and to the plank of John Bulwer, in Chirologia, or the natural language of the hand, composed of the speaking motions and discoursing gestures thereof, whereunto is added chironomia, or the art of manual rhetoric, consisting of the natural expressions digested by art in the hand as the chiefest instrument of eloquence. Let's have a look to this image, impedio, which means to prevent. I made this gesture according to the moment I wanted to evocate, when Armida, who asked her uncle Idrao, king of Damascus, to have the honor and privilege of hitting Renaud, failed after hesitating, dropping her weapon and having prevented herself from killing this victorious knight. During the dance, you will also see admiration, soul sadness, tears, and many others, which for sure always accompanied professional dancers on any stage for a rhetorical purpose in the same way as actors and singers did. I now let you discover my performance with the video of the Brighton Early Music Festival. My work on this dance was an opportunity for me to try all the things I've just been speaking about, and even if I have made use of my own creativity, it has always been, however, in link with inspiring historical knowledge. I hope you will enjoy it.